Hashtag the Millionaire's Secret. Hashtag Part 1, the job offer. This happened 3 years ago, but I still can't sleep through the night without thinking about it. I've never told anyone the full story. Not my family, not my closest friends, and definitely not the police. Maybe writing it down will help me make sense of what I saw. Or maybe it'll just confirm what I already know deep down, that I should have walked away the moment things started feeling wrong. I was 22 when it all began. Fresh out of community college with a hospitality management certificate that felt more like expensive toilet paper than a ticket to success. The job market was brutal, and I was desperate. My mom was working double shifts at the diner just to keep our lights on, and my little brother needed braces we couldn't afford. Every rejection email felt like another nail in the coffin of my dreams. That's when I saw the listing on Indeed. Luxury hotel seeking housekeeping staff, excellent pay, immediate start. The pay was what caught my eye first. $28 an hour. For housekeeping. That was almost double what any other hotel in the area was offering. The listing was vague about the actual location, just saying it was a boutique luxury hotel catering to high-profile clientele. They wanted someone with attention to detail, discretion, and the ability to work night shifts. Night shifts didn't bother me. In fact, I preferred them. Fewer people to deal with, and I'd always been more of a night owl anyway. I applied immediately, not really expecting to hear back. Jobs like that usually went to people with connections or years of experience. I had neither. But within 2 hours, my phone rang. Is this Sophia Martinez? The voice on the other end was professional, crisp, female. Yes, this is she. I'm calling on behalf of the Azure. We received your application for the housekeeping position. Are you available for an interview tomorrow afternoon? My heart jumped. Absolutely. Yes. What time? 2 o'clock. I'm sending you the address now. Please arrive promptly. Mr. Castellano values punctuality. The call ended before I could ask any questions. A text came through seconds later with an address in the hills outside the city. I'd driven past that area before, massive estates hidden behind iron gates, the kind of neighborhood where security guards outnumbered residents. The next day, I borrowed my mom's car and drove up the winding road toward the address. I expected to see a sign, something indicating a hotel. Instead, I pulled up to what looked like a private mansion. Sleek, modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows and perfectly manicured grounds. A fountain gurgled in the circular driveway. I checked the address 3 times. This was it. I parked and walked to the front entrance, my palms sweating. Before I could knock, the door opened. A woman in her 50s stood there, elegant in a black pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. Sophia Martinez? Yes, ma'am. I'm Mrs. Reeves, the head of staff. Follow me. She turned and walked inside without waiting for a response. I hurried after her, my sneakers squeaking on the polished marble floors. The interior was breathtaking, all white marble, crystal chandeliers, and modern art that probably cost more than my entire education. The Azure isn't a traditional hotel, Mrs. Reeves said as we walked through a hallway lined with expensive paintings. We cater to a very select clientele. Privacy is our #1 priority. Guests pay premium prices for absolute discretion. I understand, I said, even though I really didn't. She led me to a sitting room and gestured for me to take a seat. Mr. Castellano will be with you shortly. He likes to personally interview all staff members. Then she left. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my leg bouncing nervously. I studied the room, the leather furniture, the modern sculptures, the view of the city sprawling below through the massive windows. Everything screamed money. Miss Martinez. I jumped at the voice. A man stood in the doorway, and I hadn't even heard him approach. He was probably in his mid-40s, tall and lean in an expensive charcoal suit. His dark hair was graying at the temples, and his eyes were an unsettling shade of gray-blue. Handsome in a cold, calculated way. "Mr. Castellano," I stood quickly, almost knocking over a decorative vase. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Please, sit." He took the chair across from me, crossing one leg over the other with practiced ease. For a moment, he just studied me, his gaze so intense I had to fight the urge to look away. "You're young," he finally said. "I'm 22. But I'm a hard worker. I've been working since I was 16. He held up a hand. "I'm not concerned about your work ethic. I'm more interested in your discretion." "My discretion?" "The guests who stay here value their privacy above all else. They're celebrities, politicians, business executives. People who can't afford to have their activities become public knowledge." He leaned forward slightly. "If I hire you, you will see things. Hear things. And you will never, under any circumstances, speak about them. Not to friends, not to family, not to anyone. Do you understand?" Something in his tone made my skin prickle, but I nodded. "I understand." "Good." He sat back. "The position pays $28 an hour. You'll work 4 nights a week, Wednesday through Saturday, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. Your responsibilities include cleaning the guest suites, restocking amenities, and maintaining absolute silence while working. Guests should never see you or hear you." "Like a ghost," I said without thinking. He smiled, and this time it looked genuine. "Exactly like a ghost. Can you start Wednesday?" I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why a hotel needed housekeeping staff who worked like phantoms. But all I could think about was that paycheck. $28 an hour, 4 nights a week. That was over $4,000 a month. "Yes," I said. "I can start Wednesday." Part 2, the first night. Wednesday came faster than I expected. I showed up at 7:45 p.m., dressed in the black pants and white button-down shirt Mrs. Reeves had specified. The mansion, hotel, I kept reminding myself, looked different at night. Lights glowed from within, casting long shadows across the driveway. The fountain looked almost sinister in the darkness. Mrs. Reeves met me at a side entrance I hadn't noticed before. "You'll always use this entrance," she said. "Never the front. That's for guests only." She handed me a keycard. "This will get you into the service areas and the guest floors. Never, and I mean never, use it to access Mr. Castellano's private quarters on the top floor. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear." She led me through a maze of hallways to a service elevator. As we rode up, she went over the rules again. No talking to guests. No making eye contact with guests. If a guest spoke to me, I was to smile politely and leave immediately. I was to clean the rooms on my list and nothing else. I was never to enter a room if the privacy sign was on the door. "What if I need to clean a room and the sign is up?" I asked. "Then you don't clean it. You move to the next room on your list." She looked at me seriously. "Sophia, these people pay $5,000 a night for privacy. We give them what they pay for." The elevator opened on the 3rd floor. She handed me a clipboard with a list of room numbers and a cart stocked with cleaning supplies, fresh linens, and fancy toiletries. "You have 8 rooms tonight. Take your time. Quality over speed." She checked her watch. "I'll be in my office if you need anything. Extension 100. Then she was gone, and I was alone. I looked at my list. Rooms 301, 303, 305, 307, 309, 311, 313, and 315. All odd numbers, all on one side of the hallway. I started with 301. The room was empty, but someone had definitely been there recently. The bed was unmade, Towels were on the bathroom floor, and there were 2 empty champagne bottles on the nightstand. I got to work, moving efficiently through the space. Strip the bed, replace the linens, clean the bathroom, vacuum, dust, restock everything. It took me about 45 minutes to get the room perfect. By the time I finished 3:03, I was hitting my stride. This wasn't so bad. The rooms were beautiful, all modern furniture, expensive art, those fancy rain showers. I could see why people paid so much to stay here. I was halfway through 305 when I heard voices in the hallway. I froze, remembering Mrs. Reeves' instructions. If guests were coming, I needed to disappear. I quickly pushed my cart toward the door, planning to slip out, but I wasn't fast enough. 2 men walked past the open door. One was in his 60s, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my mom's car. The other was younger, maybe 30, athletic build, expensive watch glinting on his wrist. They didn't see me. They were too absorbed in their conversation. "Needs to be done by Friday," the older man was saying. "No excuses this time. You'll have it. I promise. You promised last time, and look where that got us." Their voices faded as they turned a corner. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and quickly finished the room. The rest of the night passed without incident. I cleaned my 8 rooms, each one a glimpse into lives I couldn't imagine. Designer clothes left on chairs. Jewelry carelessly tossed on dressers. In one room, I found a stack of $100 bills on the bathroom counter like it was loose change. By 4 a.m., I was exhausted but satisfied. The work was hard, but it was honest work. I clocked out with Mrs. Reeves, who inspected one of my rooms and nodded approvingly. "You did well tonight, Sophia. Same time Friday." I drove home as the sun started to rise, already thinking about what I'd do with my first paycheck. Part 3, the locked door. The first few weeks were routine. I fell into a rhythm: show up, clean my assigned rooms, avoid guests, go home. The pay was incredible. By the end of my second week, I'd made more money than I'd made in a month at my previous job. I bought my mom a new winter coat and put some money toward my brother's braces. But I was starting to notice things. Small things at first. Like how the same cars were always parked in the underground garage. Expensive cars, Mercedes, BMWs, one Bentley. But I never saw the same guests twice. Different faces, different names on my room list, but the same vehicles. And then there was the basement level. I'd only been down there once, when Mrs. Reeves gave me a tour of the service areas. She'd pointed out the laundry room, the storage closets, the staff break room. But there was one hallway she hadn't shown me, one section where the lights were dimmer and there were no room numbers on the doors. "That area is off limits," she'd said when I asked. "Mr. Castellano's private storage. You have no reason to go down there." The way she said it made me more curious, but I didn't push. It was my 4th week when things got weird. I was cleaning room 407, going through my usual routine, when I found something under the bed. A phone. Not a smartphone, but one of those old burner phones, the kind you see in movies about criminals. I picked it up, wondering if I should turn it in to Mrs. Reeves. But before I could decide, it buzzed in my hand. A text message popped up. Meeting moved to 2 a.m. Basement level. Bring the package, ***. My heart started pounding. I stared at the message, my mind racing. What package? What meeting? I should have put the phone back. I should have pretended I never saw it. But something made me keep reading. I scrolled up through the messages. Shipment arrived. 50 units, ***. Client confirmed for Thursday. Usual spot, ***. Payment cleared. $250K, ***. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. My hands were shaking. This wasn't right. This wasn't normal hotel business. I quickly put the phone back where I'd found it and finished cleaning the room in record time. My mind was spinning the entire drive home. $250,000. Shipments. Basement meetings at 2 a.m. I tried to tell myself it was none of my business. I was just the housekeeper. I cleaned rooms and collected my paycheck. That was it. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Hashtag part 4, curiosity kills. I made it through Friday and Saturday without incident, but by Wednesday, I couldn't take it anymore. That text message haunted me. I kept thinking about those basement hallways, the ones Mrs. Reeves said were off limits. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Rich people probably had all kinds of weird business dealings. It didn't mean anything illegal was happening. But I had to know. That Wednesday night, I worked my shift as usual. 8 rooms, all on the 4th floor. By 1:30 a.m., I was done. Mrs. Reeves had already gone home for the night. She usually left around midnight on Wednesdays. I was alone. I stood by the service elevator, my keycard in my hand, heart hammering in my chest. I could go home right now. Clock out, get in my car, forget I ever saw that phone. Or I could take the elevator down to the basement. Before I could talk myself out of it, I pressed the button. The elevator descended, my stomach dropping with it. The doors opened onto the dimly lit hallway I remembered from the tour. I stepped out, listening. Silence. I walked past the laundry room, past the storage closets, toward the section Mrs. Reeves had told me to avoid. The hallway stretched ahead, darker than the rest. There were 3 doors, all unmarked. I tried the first one. Locked. The second one. Locked. The third one opened. I stood there for a moment, every instinct screaming at me to turn around. But I couldn't. I had to see. I pushed the door open slowly. The room beyond was pitch black. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. What I saw made my blood run cold. The room was large, maybe 30 by 30 feet. But it wasn't empty. Metal shelving units lined the walls, and on those shelves were packages. Dozens of them. All wrapped in brown paper, all roughly the same size. I walked closer, my flashlight beam shaking. On one of the packages, someone had written in black marker, "Client, Moreno. Delivery, November 15th, ****. I reached out to touch one when I heard voices. Footsteps in the hallway. I spun around, my heart exploding in my chest. I killed the flashlight and pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. "Told you, the shipment is clean," a man's voice said. It sounded familiar. "No one's going to trace it back to us. Mr. Castellano won't tolerate any more mistakes." That was a different voice, deeper, with an accent I couldn't place. Mr. Castellano. They were right outside the door. I looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide. No closet, no furniture, just open floor space and those shelves. The door handle started to turn. In desperation, I ducked behind one of the shelving units, making myself as small as possible. The door opened, and light flooded the room. "See? Everything's accounted for." The first voice again. 50 units, just like the manifest says. Through the gaps in the shelves, I could see 2 men. One was wearing the same expensive suit I'd seen on that silver-haired man in the hallway weeks ago. The other was younger, built like a bodyguard. The silver-haired man walked to one of the shelves and picked up a package, turning it over in his hands. "Good. The client is paying top dollar for this batch. No room for error. When's the pickup?" "Tomorrow night. Castellano wants us to use the service entrance at 3 a.m. They talked for a few more minutes about logistics, deliveries, payments. I didn't understand half of it, but I understood enough. This wasn't hotel business. This was something else entirely. Finally, they left, turning off the light and locking the door behind them. I waited in the darkness, counting to 100 before I dared to move. My legs were cramping, and I was covered in cold sweat. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight again. I had to get out of here. I tried the door. Locked from the outside. Panic set in. I was trapped. I pulled on the handle, jiggling it desperately, but it wouldn't budge. I forced myself to calm down. Think, Sophia. Think. There had to be another way out. I swept my flashlight around the room, looking for anything, a window, a vent, another door. That's when I saw it. In the corner, partially hidden by the shelving units. Another door, smaller than the main one. I rushed over and tried the handle. It opened. Beyond was a narrow corridor, barely wide enough for one person. I had no idea where it led, but anywhere was better than being locked in a room full of mysterious packages. I squeezed through, using my phone light to guide me. The corridor twisted and turned, clearly some kind of old service passage. After what felt like forever, I saw light ahead. I emerged into a storage room I recognized, one of the legitimate ones on the basement level. I'd made it. I practically ran to the service elevator, my hands shaking so badly I could barely swipe my keycard. When the doors opened on the ground floor, I nearly sobbed with relief. I clocked out and drove home, my entire body trembling. I couldn't go back there. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But when I got home and looked at my bank account, saw the deposits that had been keeping my family afloat, I knew the truth. I couldn't afford not to go back. Hashtag part 5, the choice. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those packages, heard those voices. The client is paying top dollar. No room for error. What was in those packages? Drugs? Weapons? Something worse? Part of me wanted to call the police right then. But what would I say? I saw some wrapped packages in a basement. I overheard a conversation about a delivery. I had no proof of anything illegal. And even if I did, Mr. Castellano was clearly powerful. Rich, connected, the kind of man who could make problems disappear. What would stop him from making me disappear too? By Thursday morning, I'd made a decision. I would finish out the week, collect my paycheck, and quit. 2 more shifts. That was it. I'd tell Mrs. Reeves I was moving out of state for family reasons. She'd never have to know what I'd seen. But Friday night changed everything. I showed up for my shift, determined to keep my head down and get through it. Mrs. Reeves gave me my assignment, the usual 8 rooms on the 4th floor. I got to work, moving through them like a robot. I was cleaning room 411 when I heard it. A sound coming from the room next door. Room 413. That room wasn't on my list. And there was no privacy sign on the door. I should have ignored it. But the sound came again. A thump, like something, or someone, had fallen. I stood in the hallway, frozen with indecision. What if someone was hurt? What if they needed help? Before I could talk myself out of it, I knocked softly on the door. Housekeeping. Is everything okay in there? No response. Another thump. I swiped my keycard and opened the door. The room was dark except for light coming from the bathroom. I could hear water running. Hello? Housekeeping. I stepped inside, and that's when I saw her. A woman, maybe in her early 30s, sitting on the floor by the bed. Her hands were bound with zip ties, and there was duct tape across her mouth. Her eyes went wide when she saw me, and she started making muffled sounds, trying to speak. I rushed over and pulled the tape off her mouth as gently as I could. Please, she gasped. Please help me. He's coming back. My hands were shaking as I tried to free her wrists, but the zip ties were too tight. Who? Who did this to you? I don't know his name. He picked me up at the bar, said he was a guest here. We came to his room and then, her voice broke. He drugged me. When I woke up, I was tied up. He said he was going to, she couldn't finish the sentence. Rage and terror flooded through me in equal measure. We need to get you out of here. I looked around for something to cut the zip ties with. I ran to the bathroom and found a razor. It took precious seconds to saw through the plastic, but finally, her hands were free. Can you walk? She nodded, rubbing her wrists. I helped her to her feet. We're going to walk out of here like nothing's wrong, I said, trying to sound calm even though my heart was racing. We'll take the service elevator, and I'll drive you straight to the police. We made it to the door. I opened it slowly, checking the hallway. Empty. We stepped out, and I guided her toward the service elevator at the end of the hall. We were almost there when I heard the ding of the main elevator. Faster, I whispered. We reached the service elevator. I jabbed the button frantically. Come on, come on. Behind us, I heard a door open. A man's voice called out, Jennifer. Where did you go? The woman beside me whimpered. That's him. The service elevator doors opened. We practically fell inside. I hit the button for the ground floor as footsteps pounded down the hallway. The doors were closing. Almost there. Almost. A hand shot through the gap. The doors bounced back open. Mr. Castellano stood there. For a moment, nobody moved. His eyes went from me to the woman beside me, taking in her reddened wrists, her terrified expression, her disheveled state. His face remained completely calm. Sophia, he said quietly. I think we need to talk. To be continued.